Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Non Sequitur Nerds. Tonight, it's the revenge of the nerds. We're talking nerd culture and just kind of general representations of nerds tonight. But as always, I'm Tim, joined by my buddy Ian. How you doing, buddy?
I'm hanging in there. Just capping off a pretty hellacious work week for me anyway.
Yeah,
It's just meetings after meetings after meetings after meetings. It's
those are. And let me guess, half of them are meetings that could have been explained in a short, like, two-sentence email, right?
no. Some of it was my own doing. I did attend a few several hour long seminars this week,
All
so
right.
um, yeah, there was some of that. But anyway, it was talking about nerdy stuff, doing a lot of learning about new nerd technology and things like that. So
Well,
I'm
there you go.
keeping up with the moniker.
Well, there you go. Well, I mean, it's like for you being in more of an IT business, I imagine you've got a lot more of that. Me working at a predominantly Amish factory, not so much. Although I found out the new guy that works directly next to me plays D&D. Granted, he's how old? He's like 21, 22, I think he is. And he's like, "Yeah, I've
Oh,
been
so
playing."
just a baby.
Yeah, he's like, "I've been playing since middle school." And I'm like, "Oh, me too." Wait, my since middle school and yours since middle school are a bit of a difference there.
Yeah,
Um,
there's like a 15-year difference between those middle
yeah,
schools.
yeah. Um, Yeah, so I mean it's cool. It's nice to have somebody at work to nerd out with. Like he plays games, he plays D&D, like I have somebody to talk to about Moon Knight, Ian, which I don't imagine you've watched yet.
Do I look like I've had time? I mean,
No,
I'm still like 4 shows behind. What
you are.
I did start Vox Machina though, so
Oh, okay, awesome. See, so all right, so I told you guys that I would get Ian to watch it, and we're gonna do a review on it.
I was going to watch it anyway. I just hadn't gotten around to it yet, so I
It's
did
it's
start
good.
it.
It's good. The animation's good. I mean, we'll talk about that later. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
nerd culture. Obviously that's something that's a big thing about this show because we are nerds. I wouldn't say we're cultured, but we're nerds. Um, it's we've mentioned before how it's nice, especially in the times that we're in, seeing how nerd culture has become the more popular thing. I mean, people play games, people do tabletop stuff. Like as a quick, like super excited note, I finally got this guy here to play D&D with us. Well, we Ian and I we've talked about it. We used to play tabletops together in high school. Haven't had time. We're actually going to be able to start playing that again. But like even things like that are becoming more mainstream and more popular. But how people perceive nerds is the biggest thing that has changed.
Hmm.
As Ian and I were kind of talking before the show tonight, and we'll go into more detail, but it seems like, in my opinion, the 80s to the 90s were kind of when you saw how nerds were represented in media or in pop culture change a bit. And even a little bit before the 80s, but I mean, you had movies where nerds were always stereotypically high waisted, pocket protector, big thick glasses, scrawny, losers, because that's how people perceive nerds. But now it's
Yeah,
it's it's different.
yeah. I mean, you could use a pretty basic juxtaposition if you want to, looking at say Revenge of the Nerds. Again, the nerds were, scrawny, frat, their own little isolated frat house type pocket protectors. Now, granted, they were the heroes of the show, and I say heroes loosely because if you go back and rewatch that movie, they do a lot of very illegal things.
Yeah, like how, and I know it's for the sake of plot, but how are these guys not at the very least completely expelled, let alone arrested? I mean, again, that's it's if you've seen the movie, I mean, you get it, but
Well, yeah, and it flows along with that, the kind of the John Hughes type
Mhm.
shenanigans, and then the animal houses of back in the day when
Yep,
they completely destroyed a town and
yeah,
and they didn't get expelled, type
yeah.
thing. But
Plot
if you look
plot
at
armor.
the right plot armor, if you look at the difference though between the way the nerds are represented in Revenge of the Nerds versus how, let's say, the character of Sam Flint is represented in Tron Legacy, they're both very nerdy characters. Sam's a computer whiz, hacker type, all this other stuff, but he's ripped.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he's he's very muscular, very athletic, like rides a motorcycle. I mean, even his dad in the original Tron, Jeff Bridges, he
Yeah.
wasn't. I mean, the original Tron came out in the 70s, 80s,
Uh,
70s, I think.
yeah. I mean, it's an older film at this point.
Right, and
Wow.
and even then, he wasn't portrayed really as kind of your stereotypical
Yeah.
nerd, even though he was.
Yeah. Very much so.
But point being is there's you can see the evolution of kind of the nerdy character go throughout, from the 80s, the 90s to the aughts to today.
Yeah.
Where you don't really have that stereotypical nerd, and if they are the stereotypical nerd, they usually have like some kind of, you know, they're like bloody rich, or they have
Right.
some other Deus Ex Machina type thing going on.
Right. Well,
Um,
I mean, like you'd mentioned, like rip nerds. I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't mention Henry Cavill. I mean, the dude is. We've mentioned this on a prior show. He is literally built like Superman, but builds gaming PCs for fun, plays Warhammer, and will like. I don't know. There was some talk show he was on where somebody said something wrong, and he actually them.
you're
I mean,
right.
he didn't do it in that voice, but he like nerdy actually. So like he has no issue defending his nerd cred. I mean, even like if you look at voice actors, Travis Willingham. If you guys can't tell, I'm on a Critical Role kick lately. But Travis Willingham, like the dude is jacked, but he is a
Oh, he's
huge.
huge.
He's literally a huge nerd. Um, Chris Hemsworth, I mean Thor, literally built like a god. He's a bit of a nerd.
Yep.
So I mean, it's
Vin Diesel.
yeah, Vin Diesel. It's all these people. I've read that you wouldn't imagine are nerds just based on physical appearance, and I know we don't like to stereotype, but people still do. Like if you look at somebody like me walking down the street, with these things on, a Mario shirt, like, oh, that guy's a nerd. You see, somebody like Henry Cavill walking down the street, and you're like, oh, that dude must work out a lot, which I mean he does, but that's not all he's about. I've talked about a former coworker of mine, my buddy Cass, who he's Greek. He is literally built like a Greek god. His hobbies include reading fantasy novels. And playing video games.
Yep.
I mean, but most people when you see him, you think, oh, the dude's a model or a gym rat. I mean, he is a gym
Yep.
rat. He lifts all the frickin' time, but he still loves nerdy stuff. And if you would have gone back even to like our parents' generation, which, as I say that, is a little farther back than what I'd like to admit, but you see people like that wouldn't be caught reading a comic book. They wouldn't be caught playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I mean, there was kind of that hidden, you had to really kind of like hide your nerddom back in those days, and even
Yeah.
kind of somewhat when we were kids too. Like,
Yeah.
we also grew up in an extremely kind of conservative, quiet,
Behind the times.
uh, behind the times area. So,
Yeah. Yeah, we
you
did.
know, finding a D&D group when we were growing up is literally like three of us, so
Yeah.
three, four of
Yeah.
us. Like,
I mean, like our original gaming group, it was you, Kevin, and myself primarily. I mean, every so often we'd have a fourth person jump in, but they'd never stay long. It was usually just the
yeah,
three of us. Or somebody would pop in, play once because they were in town, and then that'd be the last we'd ever see them. But yeah, like you couldn't find anything like that. I mean, it was you and I were lucky enough that we grew up with video game systems in our household. Most people I knew, they didn't have a Super Nintendo. They didn't have, a Genesis. They didn't have, they may have had an original NES with Duck Hunt because, their uncle thought it was neat and bought it for them. But
right.
beyond that, and now it's like every one of my son's friends at school, he has added on like his Fortnite list or on his Minecraft friends list or his Roblox friends list. They all play video games. My daughter, even a lot of her friends
Yep.
play video games. You know?
Oh, my kids love to game. I mean, they love playing all kinds of games. There's standard Mario Kart, but
Yep.
Ashton, my son, plays Destiny. He plays Halo. He plays. I said Minecraft. I don't let him get into Fortnite yet. But he does like to go out there and play various different video games, and
Right.
my daughters love to play, like Mario Kart
I mean,
and Animal Crossing
yeah.
and all those games. So,
I mean, and
and
say what you will about kids playing games. I mean, obviously, be responsible about it as a parent. Let them play things that are appropriate for them.
right,
But I mean, games are great for hand-eye coordination. They're great for reading and comprehension. I mean, if you play RPGs, they're great for math and problem solving. So I mean, there is a world of benefits to playing games. Now that shouldn't be all that they do. I mean, my kids know that when they get home from school, their homework, they have to have that done before they can do anything else. They have to
yep,
get their chores done, and if they have free time after homework and chores, if they want to play games, cool. They know that there's priorities. They will do their homework. They know that if their grades start slipping, games are the first thing to go for them. I mean, that's for them I don't. This isn't a parenting podcast, but for them, that's a big incentive to want to strive to do good because that's a hobby that they legitimately enjoy. Like I can't count how many times one of the kids will be playing Minecraft or Roblox, or a game where you can make something in it. And I'm like, Dad, come here, I want to show this to you. And some of the stuff they make on there, I mean, it's helping their creativity, their visual
oh, sure,
expression. I mean, some of the stuff that my son can make on Minecraft, I'll have to ask him like, how did you do that? Because I want to know how to make that. Or like like my daughter, she'll like make a little like simple game on Roblox. She'll have been playing it for 10 minutes, and have like a fully fleshed out environment in that game
yep,
as she's working to make other stuff for it. And it's like that's to me that's impressive. That's them being creative. Like they've both expressed interest in. I know they're still a little young. You know how kids are; they're going to change their mind 800,000 times. But they've each expressed, well, hey, if I wanted to go to college for making games, what would I have to do for that? Or if I wanted to go to program stuff, what would I have to do for that? And it's like when I was growing up, there weren't as many options for those kind of things. In retrospect, I wished I would have gone into something like that because by the time I graduated, that was a booming market. But it's neat that they're already as kids. That's something that they want to be when they grow up. They want to be a game maker. They want to be a programmer. They want to be a level designer. Things like that. And again, going back to our younger days, it was hard to get anybody to even play a game, let alone thinking about it being a legitimate career. So, I mean, even in our lifetime, we've seen that paradigm of what is, nerdy change.
yeah, exactly, and the even again, going back to depictions of nerds in media,
Yeah,
there's
I'll get off my
the
soapbox.
no, I'm saying that there's the nerd in Robot Chicken, the quintessential nerd, but at the same time, he's kind of more of a slapsticky type
Yeah,
character, but
it's a
at the
parody
same time,
character.
he also gets into these like bombastic situations where
Yep.
he's like the hero and everything. Um, and yeah, and being a nerd is, people, like I said, he used to kind of hide that, but they kind of let that flag fly
Oh
nowadays. I
yeah.
mean, if you look at pre-COVID anyway, like comic book convention, like Comic Con and PopCon and all of the anime cons and all of
Yep.
those different conventions around the country, around the world, like the
Yeah.
number of people that attend those kind of things is absolutely insane.
Oh god, yes.
Gen Con is one of the biggest, if not the biggest tabletop based convention, and it's
I,
based out
I,
of where I
yeah,
live.
I think it still holds the record for being the biggest. I
Yeah, I
last I
believe it.
checked.
Yeah, I believe it does too. But I mean, the at their big anniversary celebration before COVID hit, they had to rent out, I think, the entire convention center and then
Yep.
some of the football stadium that was next
Yeah.
door.
Yep. Because there were
Like
so many people wanting to go.
I believe their attendance was, I think, 300,000.
Jeebus. And keep in mind for anybody that's not familiar with Gen Con, that is predominantly a tabletop slash board game convention. Like they deal in D&D, Warhammer, different nerdy board games. That's the extent of their thing. So I mean they're a very specific kind of con, and they still had 300,000, which
Yep.
is insane.
Yep. So, I mean, you can imagine like just the sheer number of people that are, and you don't, not everybody that goes to these things are there for the, for the tabletop games. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the primary draw, right? But they do cosplay contests. They
Yeah.
do, they have vendor booths for all kinds of different stuff, and so it's a thing. But and that's the other thing is like nerds nowadays are, they make a living being nerds. You have
Yeah.
people doing podcasts and nerdy
Yeah.
podcasts and stuff, and they get paid for it doing. I'd like to know how. Doing
they,
stream,
they have to have more than 20 listeners, Ian.
apparently they you have to there's Twitch streamers that are paid and whatnot to.
We need to be in hot tubs. That's what we're missing. All right, let's.
I mean, I've got a boom mic. I can just sit here and lick it, and just do one of those ASMR podcasts.
I'll sell my backwash tea. Does that work?
Yeah. Anyway, this got weird.
A little bit.
But there's other people that are crafters. People that make leather armor. They make metal armor. They make prop replicas. One of my favorite TV shows that I like to watch is Forged in Fire on
yes, I love
History
that show.
Channel.
Yep.
On History Channel. It's literally blacksmiths, people that make they make a living as a blacksmith. Like
an old school blacksmith, like forging everything. I mean, yeah, they use some machinery, but literally forging it with their hands. I mean, like that. Like if I could get into any trade skill and be good and financially stable at it, it would be blacksmithing. Just because it's more than just making swords and knives. You can make tools, you can make armor, you could make all manner of just really awesome things. I think that's why I like 3D printing. It's blacksmithing made easy. I literally push a button and walk away for 5 hours. But
right.
Like
the point being
that's
is
a trade
like,
skill I'd love to get into.
Yeah, but I mean the point being is though, you have to have some level of appreciation not only for, especially people that make fantasy swords, fantasy type gear and stuff like that, which is
and make them durable enough to actually you can go to any Renaissance fair and find like a fantasy sword from some movie or video game. I believe is it you or your brother that owns a Keyblade?
My brother does.
Which, I mean, that one is very much a prop display replica.
Yeah.
But there are blacksmiths out there who make ones that are like full contact. You can beat somebody to death with this Keyblade. I saw one blacksmith. It was some channel on YouTube, and I unfortunately don't remember who it was. But they made it was 3/4 scale Buster Sword of Cloud Sword from Final Fantasy VII. Only because making it 100%, they were having a hard time lifting it, so they made it 3/4 so that structurally it'd be a little bit more sound based on how they were building it. But I mean, the thing was, you could they were like chopping wood with it, cutting stuff in half with it, and like that's not something you can just put together willy nilly. I mean, you have to have at least some manner of skill. But again, it's like something like that. People, even non-nerds, are like, that's cool,
Right.
It's awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, it also extends to other arts and crafts, and whatnot, and like actual art. There's plenty of artists out there. I mean, look at you look at some of the biggest game companies in the world right now, and they have art studios and CGI departments that rival major big name studios. I've said it for years. If Blizzard Entertainment ever wanted to get out of making video games, they could just go and make freaking movies because their cinematics are amazingly beautiful.
That's something that Blizzard has always been great about. Like their cinematics are always like top notch. Even just like the opening movie. Like, I remember the original, it might have been, I think it was World of Warcraft, where it opens up with the dwarf in the snow, and he's got his...
Yeah, that's the original.
The first, I mean, even today, the CGI in that is still pretty good. But, when that came out, I sat there just watching it, because of, they animate, you could see the pores on his skin. I mean, I know in today's age of 4K, it probably isn't going to hold up if you watch it in 4K, but... Back when that premiered, oh my god, that was amazing. Overwatch, when they put out the character vignettes for that, kind of explaining their stories a little bit more, all of those, the animation was incredibly smooth, fluid, visually. I mean, Overwatch is more of I don't want to say cartoony, but it's a less than realistic art style. Yeah, it's cartoony. It's cartoony. Yeah. Not to dumb it down or anything, but even the animatics for that are phenomenal. Blizzard, yeah, I agree with Ian 100%. If Blizzard ever wanted to get out of games, make a CG movie because better than the Warcraft movie. And you guys will make bank.
Right, exactly. I mean, and it's just it's one of those things where the video games is kind of our default type
Yeah,
nerdy type thing, right? And when we were growing up, it was again, it was that niche thing. Like people didn't, if you had a video game system or if you played video games, you were kind of nerd,
yeah, by
nerd type,
default.
right? In 2021, the video game industry grossed $60.4 billion in revenue, up 8% from 2020.
Not bad.
If that tells you how
Yeah,
popular the video games are these days.
yeah,
Um,
just a little bit.
right. But and then then there's also we talked a little bit about things like Kickstarters and stuff like that before too. I mean, there's plenty of people out there who are just creating for the sake of creating,
Yeah,
and it's really kind of cool.
yep,
And they're taking their love of nerd culture and things like that. Their Kickstarters and Etsy shops and
yep.
Pinterest posts and
Well, I mean, heck,
uh,
even I'd mentioned 3D printing a little bit ago. There's some companies that make their money 3D printing stuff. But
mhm.
there's a lot of creators actually who just put it out there for free. It's like, hey, I made this thing. If you've got the equipment or have the means to print it, here it is. Have it.
Yeah.
Others sell like the files to print it yourself. Others sell the already printed stuff. Like I was at the my local friendly gaming store the other day, and they had gotten in a new set of 3D terrain for like tabletop games, and like the quality, like you can tell when stuff's 3D printed. It just has a certain feel, certain look to it. Um, but like it was very obscenely high quality. The only reason, like the price on it was fantastic. Only reason I didn't pick it up is they had like display pieces for it that were all like pre-painted professionally. I didn't realize
Mhm.
that, and I'm like, oh my god, these look great in that price. Oh my god, I'm picking up like one of every set. They're supplied unpainted, and my painting skills, particularly with miniatures, are not the greatest. So I'm like, even though a lot of it's terrain and like I could make a rock look like a rock, there were two rock sets, some water pools, like a bunch of different buildings that were actually modular, so you could like take off like the all the walls to the upper story if you had people in there. But anyway, like so, I mean, there's even stuff like that that people are making that are readily available to people now. And like back when we were younger, like I remember the first time I did for a miniatures game any kind of like 3D terrain. It was
Mhm.
some computer software that formatted the images to print out onto cardstock or just regular paper. You had to cut it out, tape it together, and you had a ramshackle like building or or whatever have you. But it was all 99% of it was all like rectangular or flat surface
Yeah.
stuff. And now we're so it's even that has changed on from that aspect anyway. But yeah, nerd culture in general, it has evolved a lot. It has grown a lot. It is more mainstream. It's more popular. Um, I mean, even and I've mentioned this before. Even people at work, if there's any kind of like big in mainstream news, video game related news, I'm the one that they come to at work and go, "Hey Tim, tell me more about this. What have you read about it? What do you think about it?" And they may only be vaguely familiar with video games, but that kind of stuff is popping up in mainstream news now. I mean, before the only thing you saw in mainstream news was like, oh, the video game market's crashing, blah blah blah. If any of you remember the first video game crash, or I should say the last one, because there hasn't been a video game market crash since the last one back in like 70s, 80s, somewhere around there.
Yeah, something like
It was a
that.
little before our time, not by much though, but I mean,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I mean, beyond that, you only ever heard of oh, who was it? Yeah, you only ever heard of you remember Jack Thompson?
yes,
That
I remember
jackass.
Jack Thompson.
Yeah, that jackass attorney that kept trying to sue the crap out of the video game industry claiming that they caused violence in children and all this other stuff, and he was
I
just a
mean, like,
Titanic.
here's my big argument: if video games cause violence in children, Ian and I would be serial killers at this point. I mean, he may have bodies in his basement. I don't know. He tells me he doesn't have a basement, but I think it's just a cover.
I mean, something's covered up.
I mean, but no, it's we've said it before. We'll say it again. Video games are a fantastic thing. Just yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. They're fantastic. They're fun. They're a great like. That's how when I'm done with all the stuff when I'm done with work, I'm done with all my stuff at home. That's how I relax. I do my daily
Yep.
workout and then I play games. And I just kind of chillax because it's a great way to, especially being ADHD. It is a great way to keep myself on task, entertained. Um, and even sometimes, like I'll be playing a game and I'll have like something on over there with music playing over here while playing a game because I'm one of those kind of ADHD guys where I have to have stimulus all around me or I get distracted. So I have to have distractions or I get distracted. But anyway, that's why I think this show works so well for us getting off topic. Um, but I mean, it's video games, tabletop gaming, like model building. Model building is something that's blown up in the last couple of years, and I don't just mean building a '67 Mustang 32nd scale car. I mean like I've got a whole stack of them I need to build over here. Like Gundams is an example. Gundam models. You used to. I remember when we were growing up, Walmart at least in this area, for a very short time, carried an obscenely limited selection of Gundam models. And it was right around the time that Cartoon Network started airing Gundam, so they imported them, tried it out, it didn't sell too well. But now there are entire stores, even here in the States, dedicated to stocking just shelves and shelves of Gundams. Like right now I've got let's see, 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 7 that I need to build.
I mean, if you want to look at how mainstream Gundam models have become, I actually saw this earlier, late last week. Target
Yep.
is running advertisements
Yeah.
for Gundam models. Like,
Well, Target actually gets exclusive Gundam models now.
right, and they were, and it's not just like, yeah, they did kind of have like a few of them in like their little niche section,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
the weird toys section that's usually over by the electronics. But now they're actually like stocking shelves of them in like the actual toys section,
Yeah.
with different, unique, uh, unique model kits to them, exclusives. So model Gundam models and models in general are definitely kind of in vogue.
Yeah. Which I mean, it's nice for me because that's one of my other hobbies where like I can sit down and just spend 20-30 minutes thinking around, piecing a model together. So I mean, obviously, like any model kit, some are easier than others. Some I can knock out in a half an hour. Some of them, especially if I go bigger scale, can take several weeks or several months.
Did you ever finish that perfect grade?
Yes, I did. It is sitting on my display case or my display cabinet, proudly displayed on top. And like fun fact, I actually bought one of the SD like chibi style Gundams of that same model kit. Well, a variation of it because that particular Gundam, the Perfect Grade's the only one they've ever released of it.
Right.
But they had an SD model that was like another version of it. Is actually sitting in front of it in the exact same pose. So it's that don't ever talk to me or my son again.
Gotcha.
So, but I mean, even we've only barely touched on movies. Uh, like Marvel movies, most of them. We'll get into that later, another episode probably. Marvel movies, even people that aren't like super comic book fans will go and watch a Marvel movie just because they know it's going to be an enjoyable time. Um, like back when we were younger, I mean, there were a few like there were the X-Men movies,
Batman.
Batman. I mean, even before that, the old, even older yet, the Superman movies.
Mm-hmm.
But there weren't. I mean, just the Marvel movies alone have countless. Was it like they're up to almost 35 films now, or they'll be at 35 by the end of the year, I think.
Yeah,
Which
something like that.
I mean, and that's a whole franchise that some of them are sequels, but most of them are brand new movies. I mean, we've got the Captain America saga, we've got Thor, we've got Iron Man, we have the tangentially canon Hulk movies, Doctor Strange, Spider Man. I mean, you've got Black Widow,
Morbius.
you've got Morbius. Yeah, I still want to see the train wreck, but I mean, my point is like there are so many, and even people that aren't like big comic book fans will go and watch them.
Right.
And it's nice to see those kind of things getting the attention that they are, even from not their target demographic, because that means those things are going to be successful. They're going to keep getting made. They're going to keep coming out with new ones. And like for us being nerds, that's bloody awesome, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of stuff out there
Yeah.
to watch and enjoy and consume as far as nerd culture goes. And there's again, it's not being a nerd nowadays isn't a derogatory term
Yeah.
anymore. It like I mean, the generally from what I've seen, if you see you see some of those people that are walk down the street and they're like, oh, look at that nerd. There's usually like 30 people that look at him and go, you're a jackass.
Yep.
So, it's no long, making well, it's never been good to make fun of anybody for,
Yeah.
for their what they want to do. I'm not going to make fun of the guy that likes to go to the gym all the gym
Yeah.
rat type that wants to go and look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's what he likes to do.
Yeah, that's his hobby, you know? Let him have his,
that's
is it for me? No. Like I have a daily workout routine, but one, distance, but two, I don't have time to devote, a full gym membership to go, it's just not in the cards for me. But I'm not going to knock anybody that does do it, Vice versa.
Yeah, exactly.
We're obviously nerds, it's we're going to play video games, we're going to read comic books, we're going to, read that new fantasy novel, we're going to play D&D. It's our hobby, it's what we do, and it's that's kind of the crux of this whole episode is nerds are here. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. There's only going to be more of us. So, learn your place. No.
exactly. And, with that, I'll say, vote Tim and Ian in 2028.
Nat 20s for everyone. That was
exactly.
That was a 2. I'm sorry.
Oh, he must be playing a bard.
Oh, hang on, inspiration. I got a 10 that time. But yeah.
Yes.
At least I didn't hold up a 1.
Oh. Then he would be playing a bard.
Yeah. Especially my old bard. He could never roll for anything.
I don't know what happened here. Either a wizard rolled a 20 or a bard rolled a 1.
Yep. Oh, good times. Good times.
So does that mean Yamcha's actually a bard?
You shut up right now. But yeah, nerds,
yes.
we're here. We're proud of who we are, and we're happy to share that with anybody that wants to ask.
Yes, exactly. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up for the day. And as always, we thank you for joining the nerds in our non sequitur rants about all things nerdy. With that, we hope to see you again next time. You can find all of our media out there on anchor.fm, which feeds out to Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, several other podcasting sites. youtube.com/non-sequitur-nerds for video recordings of our podcasts. And you can also catch us on social media, Twitter @non-sequitur-nerd and facebook.com/non-sequitur-nerds. Occasionally we will do some streaming on twitch.tv/non-sequitur-nerds.
We need to get around to actually doing that more.
Yeah, probably. Maybe when life lightens up a little bit, we can actually find carve out some decent time.
There we go.
Oh, but yeah, I think that'll go ahead and do it for us. So once again, we thank you. We all hope you have a wonderful week, and look forward to seeing you next time. Yeah, for the non sequitur nerds, as always, I'm Ian,
and I'm Tim. Hi, everybody.